It's more pain at the pumps for South Africans today as the fuel price increases have officially kicked in. The sustained rise in oil prices could be worsened, I beg your pardon, by a protracted conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Cash-strapped South Africans could soon have to contend with increased taxi fares as well as rising costs are passed on, as you know by now, to you and me, ordinary consumers. Let's unpack perhaps what the immediate ramifications might be and bring in our guest, FNB economist Koketso Mano is with us. Also joining this discussion is National Taxi Alliance spokesperson Theo Malele, who is also with us via our video link. Theo Malele, let me begin with you. We've seen the petrol price increase multiple times. Is it a far-gone conclusion from where you're sitting that this will inevitably lead to an increase in the price of some taxi fares?
Well, good morning, and thanks for having me. Yes, it goes without saying that once the fuel price goes up, even the price of commodities would actually shoot up. We also have maintenance issues to worry about to play, and we really are seriously concerned that there hasn't been much coming from the government side to mitigate this whooping almost 40% increase just in 2 years. We basically are talking about 3 tiers that may, mitigate, these issues. The issue of, passenger subsidization comes to play. We really feel that if customers or our passengers were to be subsidized, this would actually give us a breather in that we currently are charging charity fares as opposed to market-related fares. And we would urge government to, expeditiously look into this aspect, because the taxi industry has also grown exponentially in the past 2 years, from 70% to just over 80% of ridership, and yet it's not been given the necessary support by government. And another issue that we are raising to government is that they should consider increasing our capital subsidy on the tax recapitalization program, that the scrapping allowance should at least be increased to half the price of a vehicle, so that will then offset our monthly financial obligations. And the third one that we really feel could also come in handy is the exemption of certain levies on fuel to try and help us survive. Currently the way things are, it is not easy, and we are left with no option but to lock our horns and come out and give a way forward in terms of the pressures that we feel as an industry coming through as a result of this fuel price increases.
I'm interested to hone in on one of the things you mentioned there about some kind of subsidization taking place. How do you envision this unfolding in a context where there is still unresolved issues around regulating the industry, on top of questions around even the efficiency of the taxi recapitalization programs regulations, which date all the way back to 2008.
Yeah, well, this speaks to the fact that the political will, it's not there, and clearly the minister lacks the appetite to see to it that this only black-owned control business is actually being taken care of, because it also is helping government to move its citizenry from point A to point B, and yet government just turns a blind eye on the taxi industry, and we find this unbearable.
Let me bring you into our discussion here, Koketso, because ironically what we've now ventilated is that it's not only got to do with issues to do with the economy, there's geopolitics that are involved, and there's politics, even domestic issues that all coalesce, and sadly individuals, role players who carry this entire burden ultimately are ordinary consumers.
Yes, quite true. You've mentioned geopolitical tensions. We have seen the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, and the concern there is that there have already been financial sanctions on Russia, and there could be, or there is already pressure to, extend these sanctions to the energy sector. And if that would happen, that would only worsen, the shortages of energy that we have been experiencing since economy started to open up, and that has been really resulting in higher oil prices globally. So should those sanctions extend to the energy sector for Russia, which is one of the top producers globally, we could see a spillover to further price increases when it comes to oil. And the concern there is that there could be demand destruction on a global level. For South Africa, it becomes concerning when we think about our trading partners and our recovery from the pandemic effect. You spoke about households. I mean, we've seen how, high inflation or high price acceleration has been affecting demand locally, and we expect that going forward there could be some further pressure on the oil front, on the petrol price front, and that could also result in less demand for other goods and services. We're very concerned about your lower income households who tend to spend a lot on food and transportation, and those lower income households are experiencing inflation right now in the region of close to 7%.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, a couple of hours ago, U.S. President Joe Biden announcing that the U.S. and I think it's about 30 other countries have committed to releasing 60 million barrels of oil from what they're calling strategic reserves. Now, we know these reserves exist, and ironically, they're there for cases of emergencies, potentially like the one we're in now. The question to you is, do we expect this to have a significant enough dent on the global situation such that we'll also get some relief in South Africa?
Yeah, I mean, there have already been articles around that. The 60 million barrels of emergency reserves that have been released are likely not going to be enough. They could provide some reprieve in the short term, but not enough to really cover or absorb what we're losing from Russia. Estimates there are that it's only about 6 days of Russia's production, 12 days of exports. So it's really not enough to dent, the pressure that we're getting from this conflict. And already in March, we're already experiencing a nearly 150 per litre increase in petrol prices, and we're likely going to see another steep increase in April should these conflicts continue. I mean, we're sitting now with oil prices closer to $110 per barrel. So the situation is not really looking good. And inflation in South Africa is already looking to really touch the 6% mark, which is the top band or top mark of the South African Reserve Bank's inflation band.
Theo Malele, let me bring you back into the discussion. The taxi industry, as has been said ad nauseum, is the backbone of the economy in this country. And I'm sure it's not lost to any of us, typically, the kind of people who are using taxis and the kind of socioeconomic background they come from. With that in mind, what actually goes into determining by how much taxi fares will increase in a context where, quite frankly, everyone is trying their best to keep their head above water?
Look, we actually go through a rigorous process of looking at the actual cost breakdown of our invariables. And as it were, our margins have been squeezed. As I have alluded to, we are charging charity fares as opposed to market-related fares. So yes, we're going to be factoring all those in. And once we are out of that meeting, we will be announcing what the way forward will be. But we'll always be cognitive of the fact that we are trying by all means, but I don't think we are going to, scale through to ensure that, the low end of our market does not actually get to pay or rather spend more than 10% of their disposable income on public transport. But clearly this is also a government's, responsibility to actually, get on board and help, ease the situation. Yes, we do understand that, the international, pressures are at play, but at the very same time, we have too many frills around the, makeup of the fuel price.
All right. We'll hopefully find some kind of resolution moving forward. For now, thanks for both your time. We appreciate it. Theo Malele is the National Taxi Alliance spokesperson. Also joining that discussion, FNB economist Koketso Mano. To both of you once again, thanks very much indeed.